Hello, it's Jaime J, and I am here today with a good friend of mine and fellow mastermind member, Morgan Wright. How are you, Morgan?
Reporting for duty, sir. Me and Jack Bauer,
Jack
cyber dog,
Bauer.
cybercrime dog extraordinaire. By the way, it is a official police dog.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so we were kind of talking a little bit before this. Uh, I'm big into helping people online and helping them out, making sure they're going in the right direction.
Yep.
And we do a lot of websites for people, and I happen to be coaching some people, and they're asking me questions on what to do, and I just want to make sure that I'm answering them correctly. One of the biggest things that I've recommended to people based on what I've found to be true in my own belief system, and I just want to just have you on board, is making sure that you protect yourself online, whether that's through a secure socket layer, an SSL, where you see the little HTTP before the URL. You want to make sure that it's HTTPS.
Yes.
However, one of the challenges that I've been experiencing is a lot of people are trying to get around this and get something for free and think that they're protected. And while that may or may not be good, I just wanted to kind of have a conversation around that and some of the things that's happened with big companies like Symantec and stuff like that. I want to kind of get into that. But before I do, I wonder if maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what your background is.
Morgan Wright. You want more? Yeah. That's the fun part. Hey, if you guys are thinking about working with Jaime, he's the man. I tell you, he sandbags worse than anybody I know. He knows everybody, including the Pope. The King and I hate name droppers, and Jaime, but he knows everybody. Hey, look, no, just the short version is 18 years in state and local law enforcement, a police officer, state trooper, detective, had the chance to work on some significant things like the Oklahoma City bombing with the FBI out in my area. So, I mean, it's been a good run for that. And then when I moved out to Virginia, a lot of my work was done in the justice and intelligence community from the private sector. I've instructed, done behavior analysis, interviewing out at the National Security Agency, spent a year training the FBI on internet investigations. I actually, for a year and a half, I don't even think you know this, or maybe I told you, I actually ran Microsoft's online anti-piracy program. I was the guy for a year and a half doing all their internet investigations.
No, I didn't know that.
I actually helped Microsoft get their first ever judgment against an internet uploader of pirated software. So,
wow.
And actually, guess what? Guess what else did? I actually have the NDA in my files down here. I was retained by Lucasfilms and PepsiCo to do the investigation on the Star Wars when they went back and did Episode 1. Confidential plot information got released. Queen Amidala, Senator Palpatine. So I flew down to Dallas, Texas on a Friday afternoon after getting the call Friday morning, searched over 300 Macs, actually found the leak. So what it was is they were putting this information onto the labels that went around Mountain Dew and Pepsi cans. But it had the confidential plot information. So,
oh, wow.
Hey, that was fun, but it was a combination of investigations. Anyway, but saying that, but I did a lot of work in the justice intelligence community, defense community, some companies like Unisys, Bearing Point, worked down at the Department of Justice, ran global public safety, homeland security for Cisco for 7 years. And then my last official corporate position, and I'm basically unemployable. I can't go back into the corporate world anymore, as you can see by the way I'm dressed. I was the vice president at Alcatel-Lucent. I had a team from Bell Labs and other folks who were doing all this stuff around public safety. But for about 14 years, I've been the chief technology analyst for Fox News and Fox Business on cybercrime, cyber terrorism, things related to that. Testified before Congress a couple times on the security and privacy of Healthcare.gov. And now I'm just a little entrepreneur trying to make it in this big world.
Oh, well, needless to say, you definitely have the credentials, the knowledge. You really, really, really embrace security and online theft, identity theft, that kind of stuff. And I really applaud you for that, because it's kind of one of those things that people really don't care about it until it happens to them. And
nobody gets religion. You're right. And I used to have to say, nobody gets religion until they've been crucified. We didn't get serious about airline security until September 12th, unfortunately. But the problem is we're always fighting yesterday's battle. So part of this is, how do we fight tomorrow's battle today and prepare for it so we don't have to fight that battle? And that's identity theft, privacy, online security, online dating. You and I were just talking about that. How do we keep our kids safe? 1 in 4 kids are going to be the victim of identity theft before they're 18. I mean, there's some shocking statistics out there. Stay tuned at 10 o'clock as we give you the updated report.
Yes. Coming to you live. Well, there's a couple things. My good friend, I'll give him a little plug here, Eric Fisher, he's the owner of Osiris Communications, and they do web hosting and stuff like that. I asked him, there is a company called Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt, I think started, oh my gosh, 2014 maybe, if my memory serves me correctly. But what they wanted to do, or maybe it wasn't, that's when Google announced that if you have an SSL, which is a secure socket layer, which makes your website, it helps protect it, right?
Yeah, it creates a secure connection between you and the resource you're accessing without having to know the others, without having to exchange anything. I mean, real quickly, I mean, for those folks, it's like, if you're on your bank and it says HTTPS and it's SSL, it uses symmetrical encryption. So you negotiate, you create a handshake, boom, and now we're connected together. So at least for that session, your information that goes from your application to that resource is all connected and protected. Or that's what we're led to believe until you and I start talking about Let's Encrypt and some of this stuff.
Right. So basically right now, and some people may be experiencing this. I've experienced it a couple of times when you go to a site and it said this site is unsafe. More and more, that's going to start happening with Google, because they want people to get safe. They want people to have safe browsing, go to sites that are, hey, this is an okay site to visit. That's basically what an SSL is basically saying. Yes, this site's been vindicated or vetted, I guess you should say. Yeah, vetted so that it's okay. Well, one of the challenges I've found is something like Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt, it offers a free SSL solution, so that you can get that little HTTPS, which stands for secure.
Or supposedly.
Supposedly, right. The challenge is you can, if you don't have like a Bluehost or a HostGate or something like that where it has the little Let's Encrypt emblem on there to add these SSLs, which makes it very easy, it's very, very difficult to add that. And then there really, in my opinion, after learning more about this, there's really no vetting process that happens. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, first of all, this is the equivalent of if you want to do Let's Encrypt yourself, here's what happens. You and I remember the days, Jamie. Remember the VCR, how difficult it was to program? So instead of programming it, it was just sitting there flashing. Nobody knew how to program it, put in the time, whatever. So that's what's happened with Let's Encrypt. They've made it so difficult. In theory, it's a good thing. Would say, hey, we want you to have these certificates. Keep your site safe, so people can trust that they're having a validated and a vetted transaction with you. The problem is it's so difficult to do, people give up their hands. It's like, I can't figure this out, so they don't do it. The problem with Let's Encrypt, and it's happened to Symantec. Look, full disclosure, Symantec used to be one of my clients. I did help them go to market on some of their security products. No longer, so I'm not getting paid by them, so I am going to beat them up in this conversation. But the problem with Let's Encrypt is that when you went back to like this last June, and it just happened again, they allowed over 14,000 SSL certificates to be issued to fake phishing sites for PayPal. And then just recently, there was a flaw that allowed people to hijack this. So look, if you can't trust, here's the problem. People trust the SSL, but my question is, how do you know the SSL is valid? And I'll give you a case in point. Actually, it came out, one of the guys I interviewed for a product launch video bills himself as the world's most famous hacker. 2 of the Secret Service agents I trained when I was doing computer crime training were the guys that caught Kevin Mitnick, used to be the world's most famous hacker. One of the ways Kevin would continue to get access to companies is in the old days of Novell, and when you'd get these diskettes that would come out. Remember the 3.5-inch diskettes for you millennials out there? Those are little square things that used to plug into a computer. By the way, some of our nuclear sites still use 8-inch floppy disks. We'll talk about that later. Highly secure though. But so what he would do is they would be delivered in shrink wrap. What do IT guys do? System admin guys, when they get it, we got to apply the update. So they get these shrink-wrapped diskettes, apply the update, and then they'd find, we're having holes. So what they would do, they trusted the diskettes. They would go back and reinstall the vulnerability all over again, because their flaw was the golden image, the trusted image, had the back door built in. Mm-hmm. So we start questioning The whole premise of security is if you can't trust the underlying encryption and the crypto behind it, then how do I know that I can trust everything that happens out of it? A real good example is blockchain. People say, well, blockchain's been compromised. No, blockchain hasn't been compromised. The implementation of blockchain for things like Bitcoin and some of these cryptocurrencies, the implementation or how they manage that has been compromised. But the underlying crypto and the underlying structure of blockchain has not been compromised because of the way it's distributed and it sets it up. So that, in a sense, that's how do you create trust? If you and I didn't know each other, how do we create trust? Well, SSL was supposed to do that. It was supposed to say, I trust JamieJ'sBank.com. I can connect to it now and give you all my sensitive information. Well, if the underlying premise is you can't trust the SSL now, then how do I know that I'm actually connecting to my bank or to a resource and that my personally identifiable information, my account information or password, whatever, is not being exposed to hackers, scammers, and thieves? That's a country song, by the way. One I'm writing is called Partners, Brothers, and Friends. I call them hackers, scammers, and thieves.
Oh, I can't wait to see and hear you perform that one.
We'll do it out at Evans Mill in April. Me and Chad Jeffers, we're going to get a song together.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I'm all for it. It can be expensive. I understand that. You start getting multiple sites, you really start getting into this. You've got 100 sites or so, or maybe, just a bunch of sites. This can start every year when it comes to renewal or every 2 years. And that's a big chunk of change.
Let me put this in perspective real quick. And this is going to help your audience. There are 28 million small businesses in the United States. Out of those, one out of every five, one out of every five, that's 5.6 million, will be the victim of a cyber attack this year. Mm-hmm. Out of those 1 out of 5, 60% of those, or 3.4 million, will be out of business in 6 months because they couldn't sustain the cost of an attack. The average cost of an attack, just hard dollars for a small business, is $25,000. Mm-hmm. And it goes up from there the bigger of a small business you get. It sounds oxymoronic, like jumbo shrimp. But the bigger of a small business you get, those costs will go up. But here's the deal. Most of these things happen because they were able to attack your services, your website, get information, take you offline, right? Or an SSL certificate from a trusted source, from a credible place, it's worth it to pay the extra money. Why? Because that is the cheapest insurance policy you're going to get from preventing this from happening. And by the way, it was a quote from Red Adair. John Wayne did a movie about him, but he was the famous guy down in Texas who used to go out and put out oil field fires and everything. And his famous quote is, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, wait till you hire an amateur. And this is it. Guys, hire a professional. Get it from a trusted source like a GoDaddy or a Bluehost, Rackspace, whatever you have that's hosting that says, hey, we offer this. I do that with a couple of the sites I have, Jamie. I pay the extra money. I went through the extra process. Even back then with GoDaddy, I went through the vetting where they had to vet my bank account and everything else because I wanted that level of trust for them. And I'll tell you what, I do that. Plus on the sites that I have with WordPress, I use WordFence for security. Just this week, I got a report back that they had basically nuked and attacked, blacklisted an IP address out of Norway that was attempting to do a SQL injection attack on my site. Tried 260 times, 260 attempts. If I didn't have SSL and if I didn't have WordFence, if I didn't have my site locked down, I would have been one of those little victims. Now, there's nothing proprietary or behind my site. It's all just information that's publicly available. But from a reputation standpoint, if my site gets taken down and I get hacked, that hurts me and my credibility.
Sure. Well, and yeah, it stops business. You come in and you can't access your site
and your customers can't. And so if they can't trust you and if you're down for whatever reason, I was just on a site yesterday. I was reading an article and it had to do with some nuclear stuff and online security, whatever else. And then across the top is a banner that said, this reporter's Twitter account was hacked. You can't trust anything after January 22nd, but we're working to fix this. Right? How many people have had their Twitter accounts hacked, Facebook accounts hijacked? That's Mark Zuckerberg. That's all these other folks. Folks, it's not big, but the point about it is from a reputation standpoint and how long it takes you to recover. Maybe some of you don't care, and that's why I talked to you earlier about sometimes I think adults don't care. Sometimes I think small businesses just don't care. They're rolling the dice. They think it's Vegas, baby. Hey, I'll take my chances, but then when it happens to you, go, oh, why did it happen to me? I can tell you why it's going to happen to you, because 1 out of 5 of you will get hit this year, and out of 1 out of 5 of you, 60% of you are going to go out of business because you haven't prepared for the attack.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard talking about that. If you were to build a site for somebody and you say, hey, it's a good idea to get monthly management. Well, what is it? Well, it's kind of like insurance for your site. If it goes down, we make sure that because it is important that people update their sites. It's really important that, I might get a little techie here, but there's a parent theme and there's a child theme. And it's really important that you have a parent theme and a child theme, because you can make these updates and it's not going to change the way it looks and feels like that, because you want to make the changes to the child theme, not the parent theme. But at the same time, you want to make sure that all these plugins that you put in and all this other stuff is constantly updated, because the reason why updates occur, specifically in WordPress, and maybe you can elaborate on this too, is one of 2 reasons. Number 1, because they've come up with something cool and better and features and stuff like that. But number 2 is because they've identified a vulnerability and they've wanted to patch it. Blah. Yeah.
And look, what makes the news? The fact that a company came out with a wicked cool update, or the fact that one of their WordPress plugins allowed hackers, scammers, and thieves to hijack your traffic? That's what makes the news, not the good stuff. Remember the news. If it bleeds, it leads. Nobody cares. Yeah, feel-good stories, they rarely make the news. The only thing that makes the news is that funny video, like the guy sliding down his driveway on the black ice. Yeah. That was my town right here. That makes the news, but we're laughing at somebody else's expense. But what else made the news after that? 50,000 stories of everything going wrong in the world. Yeah, so, and I see that all the time too. That's why I've disabled, if you're not using WordPress plugins, remove them or disable them. Don't use them. Don't have a bunch of them active. And you can do a better job of explaining this than I can. But just as a user of this stuff, is if it affects your performance. You never know if that vulnerability mixed with something else creates a new opening. So look, if you don't need it, take it out. But I'll tell you, here's the case for monthly maintenance. And this is why, if you folks are out there looking at using Jaime or one of his partners, this is why you have to have the maintenance. How long would you get away with driving your car without changing the oil or the air filter or the fuel filter or servicing your car? You don't get 100,000 miles out of a car that you've never changed the oil on. So in our life, everything else requires maintenance. In fact, if you're in the military, Jaime, like you were and I was, what do most people spend their time doing? Preventive maintenance.
Oh, Lordy.
I mean, you're laughing, but you know what I mean. How often do Jeeps get torn down or Humvees, or things get stripped? Because you never know when you're going to go to war. You never know when something happens. But when it happens, you don't have to be worrying about, hey, when's the last time I did an oil change? If I change the spark plugs, preventive maintenance. I'm telling you folks right now, if you've got a business site where you're doing e-commerce and you're transacting money and you don't have a professional helping you, remember, if you think a professional is expensive, wait till you hire an amateur. You're the amateur and you're going to cost yourself big bucks.
I love it. Is there anything that you might recommend for someone today with regards to SSL, what they can look for before we wrap up today? Anything in particular they can?
Brand names. It sounds hokey, but look, brand names. And even then, Symantec has had some issues. So caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Do your research. Don't take anything at face value. I don't care if a company says on the site they're the greatest thing. Google is your friend. Bing is your friend. Go do your own research. Go find other sites that talk about this stuff. Do your research. But if you're going to get an SSL, the thing I would do, Jaime, is have people talk to people like you or people like your buddy from Osiris. Talk to experts. Get their recommendations. They do this for a living. Their reputation depends upon keeping your site up and running, keeping it secure. So again, talk to the experts. Take their advice. There's a reason that you don't operate on yourself. You're going to operate, you're going to go, unless you're a neurosurgeon, and even then, they don't do their own brain surgery. They get another professional. And get a second opinion if you have to. But look, trusted source, make sure that they've been in business, and do a little bit of research. All you have to do is Google the word let's, even without the apostrophe, let's encrypt, and go to the news section of Google. And guess what? You're going to find all these stories, like password managers, everything else. Every password manager has been compromised except for one that I'm aware of. All you have to do is Google this stuff. But as long as you know what the risks are and you've made a decision based on that, then fine. But if you're making a decision without the information, you're putting yourself, your business, your family, and the people who might work for you or your other partners at risk because you haven't taken the time to do the proper diligence. And look, guys, it's not rocket science. Just ask for help, talk to professionals, and then make an informed decision.
Wow. Thank you, Morgan. Appreciate that. How do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about, protecting their identity?
I'll tell you what, first of all, they can talk to my cat back here. She slept through this whole thing, which is how exciting I am. No, look, hey, I got a couple things. My professional site is morganwright.us, morganwright.us. That's where I talk about some of the work I do from a strategy standpoint. I work with some large companies and agencies in terms of strategy about what they do, but I also have some links on there for security and privacy and around protecting your identity. So I do broker identity theft solutions. I do have a couple free courses too, Jaime, that they can go to. You were talking about using it too. Freepasswordcourse.com. This is scientific. This is cryptographically proven. I show you a system for how to set and remember strong passwords without having to write them down, regardless of the number of sites you've had. I'm always making improvements, but I've tested this. I've looked at this. So, and in fact, I mean, like you've done it, but I have over 40 sites that
my girlfriend uses it. We love it.
Yeah, I use it over for 40 sites. I don't write down any passwords. But it's a quick course. It's about 15 minutes, 4 videos, and a workbook. Walks you right through it. I've also got a couple freebies out there. I'm working on some paid stuff, but I need to find out if people really are serious about doing this. But I did a survey, and I found the top 40 online sites that people log into that support two-factor authentication. So you can go to Secure My Accounts, securemyaccounts.com. I give a couple freebie ways right now. There are 5 separate ways to secure your Facebook account, and then I also do Instagram. But look, if your reputation, if you're doing stuff on social media and you haven't put this stuff in place, what will happen to you is the same thing that happened one of the segments I did for Fox News when CENTCOM, Central Command, had their YouTube and Twitter channels hacked by ISIS supporters and had ISIS propaganda put on there because why? They didn't use two-factor authentication. Simple stuff like that. And instead, in this case, we gave a rocket launcher to people who were just armed with a digital slingshot, and we gave them a bigger audience than they should have been entitled to. That's what's going to happen to you folks. Use two-factor authentication, use strong passwords, and watch out for hackers, scammers, and thieves.
I love it. Thank you so much. I've been writing down your URL so I can make sure that we share those out. Thank you.
I'll send them to you too as well too. But yeah, hey, look, and I love feedback too. If people like these courses, would you be willing to pay for a collection of the top 10 sites, or your favorite sites? But I'll tell you, I've been struggling with that too. I just find out I'm having a hard time getting small businesses and adults to care. They just don't seem to care. And like you and I, we're struggling to go. It's like you with talking about, you got to do this monthly stuff. You got to have the maintenance. You got to have your themes set, because people don't understand that. They're in the business of being in business. And so sometimes we struggle with getting people to understand why this is important. Nobody cares until it happens to them. Otherwise, everything is, oh, that's too bad. Bless his heart. That's so unfortunate. And they're thinking, thank goodness it wasn't.
It didn't happen to me. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Well, Morgan, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Sup? Oh, that was the British. This is the American version. Yes.
Yeah. There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much. My name is Jaime J, and really hope you got a lot out of this. I can't recommend checking morganwright.us out. Seriously, do you have photographic memory, Morgan?
No, because I can't remember half the time what I'm supposed to pick up at the stores. But it's funny though. Last story here, but when I was a detective, I could walk into a room and it's almost like Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blank. You could look in and see there's something wrong here, and it would take me a while to figure it out. So we used to play this game where we would set up a crime scene, put a bunch of stuff in there. It was training. Walk out of the room, somebody would do something or move something. You'd come back in. I mean, I could look at it and say, oh, this is missing. This is missing. But look, I can't remember to pick up milk when I go to the store, or half the time what my birthday is.
Well, that's why you use your geofence targeted to-dos app.
That Todoist. I do that all the time. I don't even have to think about it. I'm brain dead when I'm out driving.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again. And Jaime J here. Thanks so much for tuning in, and hope you got a lot out of this one. Seriously, think about this. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. Jack Bauer? All right, we'll talk to you soon.